Alright y'all, welcome back to the channel and do some more slug testing, and today we've got another very interesting combo to try out. Definitely curious to see what they can do. Since the previous time we tested these slugs through my Remington 870, they were kind of middle of the road. But this particular shotgun we've got today has shown some very nice results with several different slugs. So if there's a combo that's going to perform well with these slugs, it might be what we've got today. So we'll see what we get. But for the shells I've got, I brought out some of the Federal Power-Shok Sabot slugs. These ones are a 12 gauge, 2 3/4 inch, 1 ounce Sabot slug at about 1500 feet per second. And like I just mentioned, previously when we tested these through my Remington 870, they were kind of middle of the road. They were okay. They weren't great. They weren't terrible. So we'll see what happens today anyway. But here's what one of those slugs looks like for those curious. Kind of an interesting design. It's just a straight up lead slug down in there with a big hollow point cavity in it. If you're a muzzle loading person and you've used the basic lead sight-in bullets, that's kind of what it reminds me of, to be honest with you. No jacket, no plating, no nothing, just a lead hollow point slug. So pretty interesting. You don't see that loaded up in a shotgun shell very often, so hopefully it performs like it's supposed to. But for the shotgun we've got today, I brought out the Savage 212. This is a 12 gauge bolt action shotgun with a 22 inch fully rifled barrel on it. So it's set up just like a rifle. It does have a completely free floating barrel as well. No stock contact at all until you get up here to the receiver. And it does have the Savage Accu trigger in it as well. I've got a Vortex Crossfire HD 3 to 9x40 on top. So very nice slug gun setup that should have some good potential if the shells do what they're supposed to. So as for today's test, I've got a limited amount of these slugs, so we're going to run it the same as we usually do. So we're going to shoot 2 groups, one at 50 yards and another at 100 yards. All the shots through the chronograph as well. Might not be a perfect test, but it's going to tell us if this is a decent performing combo at all at your typical hunting distances. And if we see some really impressive results, we may revisit this and test it at some different ranges at some point. But for today, 50 and 100 yards is what we've got. So let's get you guys a view of those targets. We'll shoot our groups and we'll see what the Federal Power-Shok Sabot slugs can do through this Savage 212. Alright, so let's look through the chrono numbers before we look at our target. Boss claim is 1500. We have a 22 inch barrel, and I don't think we were quite seeing that claim. I think mid 14s is probably about what we were seeing on average. But we had a high of 1487, a low of 1412. That gave us an average of 1451. So 49 feet per second below their claim. Probably means they tested it through a 24 inch at the factory, I would guess, to get that claim. But it gave us an extreme spread of 75 with a standard deviation at 29. But at an average of 1451, here's your muzzle energy for a 1 ounce slug at that velocity. That's 437.5 grains flying down range, and that's going to be plenty enough energy to do the job, although it is a little bit slower than your typical rifled slug would be. So I definitely wouldn't have minded to see a little bit higher velocities, especially considering our setup that we're shooting them from today. But with a box claim of only 1500 to start with, some companies get a little overzealous or a little unrealistic with their claims through average hunting guns. So I'm not overly surprised. However, let's look at our target, because I think we saw some not so amazing accuracy results. Okay, so here we have our targets, and it's not exactly what I was hoping to see, that's for sure. Definitely, the farther we got out in range, the more inconsistencies we saw. And I think a little bit of that might have happened the last time we tested these through my 870 as well. But even at 50 yards, it's not anything overly impressive. And I do apologize, it's a little bit of a goofy looking target. I kind of ran out of the circles, so I had to put the smaller squares up over top of them. But we can still see what we need to see. Starting over here on the left with our 50-yard target, not anything impressive to see there. Good enough? Yeah, definitely so. Anywhere near what we usually see? Absolutely not. That gun can stack them in the same hole at 50 yards without much of an issue. So right off the bat, I knew that this was probably going to struggle out towards 100 yards a little bit. But at 50, it's 2.19 inches of spread from center to center on those farthest 2 bullet holes across. Again, plenty good enough for a close to mid-range slug gun. But we've even seen smoothbore rifled slugs that can outshoot that pretty easily. So not off to a great start, and moving out to 100, that result pretty much continued. First shot was down here low. Second 2 shots were these 2 up here. So I figured, well, I didn't feel like I pulled that shot at all on the first one, but maybe that was some sort of flyer. So I decided to take a 4th shot, and wouldn't you know it, we're right back down here again. And that was the last of these shells that I had, so I didn't have any more to keep shooting with to see what would happen. And even though it looks like a little bit of bouncing around, I can promise you that scope is perfectly fine. The rings are fine. The rail is fine. Nothing is out of the ordinary there. I just got a fantastic result testing this gun 45 minutes ago, so just a little bit of inconsistencies really starting to show up out there towards 100. I bet if we would have taken more shots, we probably would have filled in most of this entire area right here. But for our 100-yard spread, I had to get the tape measure out for it because it's right at about 7.5 inches from top to bottom here. Clearly, not at all what you want to see. Now, there are plenty of slug guns out there, older smoothbore guns and stuff, that'll shoot that same accuracy with a bead sight, and they do kill deer with them. So it can do the job, but I think it's right on the edge of what I would call minute of deer. It would work, but I wouldn't want to push it much past 50 or 60 yards, personally anyway. So I was definitely hoping to see better, but judging by the couple tests I've done so far with these Federal Power-Shok Sabot slugs, they're kind of mediocre, to be honest with you. The 870 did better than this, I believe. So maybe in the right shotgun, they might be halfway decent, but for what they are, there are better options out there for sure that are sitting right next to it on the same shelf. So not exactly what I would go for, and probably not something I would recommend either. If you got another option, it's probably going to be a better choice. Plus, it's not really an overly fantastic bullet design either. Sure, a lead hollow point slug at 1400 feet per second is absolutely going to do the job, no doubt about it. But I think there are better options out there. Even the Remington AccuTip slugs are a bonded, jacketed bullet. So for today's results, I was hoping to see better, but this is why you test different stuff and see what happens, because just about everything we've tested would blow this out of the water through that 212, that's for sure. And here are a few of the sabots that I found downrange that came from those slugs. Nothing really overly fancy to see. All of them look pretty much identical. They all flattened out about the same. Good rifling engagement. And I really think they did their job good enough for what they are. I just don't think these are overly accurate or overly consistent. Maybe a little bit of bullet design might come into play there as well. A little lower velocity could affect it for sure. But for the sabots themselves, I don't see anything out of the ordinary here. Alright y'all, well, what did you think about that result right there? Definitely not great. At 50 yards, it's usable. You could probably push that to 60, maybe 70, and still be alright, but I wouldn't push it any farther than that personally. And even at 50 yards, it is not difficult at all to absolutely stack them in the same hole with that 212. That has been the usual result, is at the very least, very close to touching at 50, and we couldn't even get that. So holding that kind of group out to 100, I knew it probably wasn't going to happen at that point. I was hoping for better for sure, but that's twice we've tested them now, and both times haven't been anything great. So if this is what you can get, and this is what you have to use, 50, 60 yards and in is probably going to be about your limit. And for some people that are hunting with a slug gun, that's probably pretty realistic for them anyway when it comes to accuracy within the ranges that they have available to them. So for some people, that might work, but for other people, it isn't going to be super impressive, and they're going to much rather prefer something else. But that's why you test different things and see what happens, because sometimes your gun is going to like almost everything, but then you're going to find something that really doesn't perform all that great. And that's kind of what we've seen here with this 212. But leave all your thoughts down below. Is that about what you expected to see? Were you a little surprised one way or the other? Have you tested any of these Federal Power-Shok Sabot slugs? And if so, what kind of results have you seen? Is that kind of accuracy result something you would hunt with? Would you have to keep it closer range, or is that good enough for you out to 100 yards or so? And maybe what other slugs do you want to see me put through this 212? Let me know all that down below. But with that being said, I've got some more testing to get done for you guys, so I'm going to get back to it. As always, we have the channel Instagram as well as the mailbox where you can send stuff if you'd like. All the information will be in the description if you're interested in it, but I'm going to get back to it, so I'll see y'all in the next one.